At the thrift store not too long ago, I found this lamp. It's a country store house lamp. Yeah, it's getting a makeover into a haunted house. But first, I'm gonna need to mix up some Celluclay. Celluclay is this amazing stuff. It will stick to anything, including country store lats found at the thrift store. It comes in like a paper pulp. You do need to mix it up. I would recommend doing it in a ventilated area, for as you see, there's dust everywhere. I currently have cellulung. Almost positive there were some measurements and directions on both the package and in that little piece of paper I took out of the package, but I don't like directions. I like to go by feel. So I usually start by kind of declumping the Celluclay, breaking it up, and then adding water. It should feel like clay. You should not be able to squeeze it and have water come out of it. So that's basically how I go with Celluclay. And then I just kind of tore up any weirdness that was on the country store and started playing with the idea of transforming this into a haunted house. I didn't go with a sketch or a solid idea in mind. I just went where the country store light and the Celluclay took me. Yeah, bear with me. So I decided that this house needed some turrets. And knowing that it will stick, Celluclay will stick to anything, I formed some parts of the haunted house out of aluminum foil. It's one of my favorite ways to make armatures when I'm working with Celluclay. So I'm toying with the idea of having a turret and then maybe a couple more on both the roof and maybe the back of the house. And I wanted like a little porch. So that's what I'm working on here, trying to figure out the dimensions of the porch and maybe even some columns for the porch. Once I've kind of got an idea in mind, then I started covering the front side of the house with Celluclay. So I usually take pieces of Celluclay that are about gumball size, squish them to about not even a ½ inch thickness, and then press them onto the surface that I'm working. Celluclay does take a while to dry, so when you're working with it, you want to make sure you don't work too thickly. Even though I was working on the thin side and I had this guy drying in front of a fan, I unplugged the fan and it sat for a while before I attacked it with paint. And I did notice a little bit of fuzzy mold growing. I just painted right over it. The acrylic paint, I'm hoping, will kind of cancel out or kill the mold. But I do want to let you know that making sure to put it in front of a fan is of utmost importance. So once I've got the front of the house covered, then I just laid my turret on top and started overlapping the Celluclay. And it really does go by pretty quickly, especially if you've got your armature ready. You just attach it, overlap the Celluclay a little bit, and it will stick. I did want to mention one thing. Now it's coming back to me. I had to say that slowly because I couldn't think of it. I did not do this all in one sitting. And that's totally fine. The beauty of this product is that you don't have to. You can always come back and rework and add more to it. However, I had a good sized batch of Celluclay made, and I definitely didn't want to throw it away when I was taking a break. So what I did was I just wrapped it in saran wrap. If you want it to stay extra soft, keep it in the fridge. Make sure you warn your family members so they don't dive into it thinking it's a weird looking cheese ball. I just wrapped mine in saran wrap and kept it in my craft room. I did notice that dried it out a little bit, but I simply threw it back in a bowl with some more Celluclay and water and kind of remade it. What's that word? I can't think of it. Anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. So here I am adding the roof to the porch. And all I did was use foil, kind of smushed it flat, and again, just kind of overlapping the Celluclay so one part touches the house and the other part touches the roof line. And then I wanted some columns. I thought about using just a coil of Celluclay to create the column, but that didn't work out very well. It's not a very strong clay when you're working with it in its wet form. It's not like actual kiln fire clay where you could roll a coil. So I noticed that it kept kind of collapsing. So again, I had to go back to my aluminum foil armature. So not gonna fib, creating this house did take longer than I thought. I mean, for being a little bitty house, it did take me a while. In fact, I bought another house just like this, but it had a clock front face. I never got to that this season, so I'm saving it for next Halloween to make it into a spooky clock house. We'll see. Anyway, so here I am trying to figure out my life and my haunted house. Once the sky was completely dry, and that did take a while, so here I am working on the door. Yeah. Oh, the cool thing about this clay is that when you want to attach two pieces, you just attach two pieces. You don't have to slip and score. There's no gluing or any of that nonsense involved. I was talking about painting the house. So when I painted it, my favorite thing to do when I create things out of Celluclay is to paint the entire surface black and then go back over the surface with a dry brush of different colors. If you're going to use a variety of colors, which I would recommend because it really gives it a lot of depth and a cool look and texture, always start with your darker colors first and then bringing the lighter colors kind of to the surface. I've done this a lot with the pumpkins I've made and the zombie heads, and it really gave them a lot of texture and kind of like an antiqued look. Painting on this kind of surface loosens me up a little bit because usually when I'm painting on a flat surface like paper or a canvas, I tend to become a little bit of a perfectionist as far as getting my lines just right and all that kind of stuff goes. But why I like painting on this surface is because I can't be a perfectionist. It really forces me to get a little bit more creative with my painting style since I can't have those perfect and pristine lines when painting on this lumpy and bumpy surface. I did end up attaching another turret to both the roof and a taller one on the left side of the roof behind the one that you see here. I didn't film that process because it was the exact same thing. I just created the armature out of aluminum foil and then used the Celluclay. I covered the roof first, just like I did the front of the house, kind of making a sticky surface to work on. Then I added the turrets to the top, overlapping the Celluclay to both the roof and the turret. So the front of the house got a lot of attention with the porch and the turrets. The back of the house just has some windows on it because, as you can imagine, after that I was kind of done. And knowing that I was going to have to paint this guy and make it look, decentish, made it so that I didn't want to add too many other elements. Trust me, I think it's busy enough as it is. Here I am working on those columns. So I just used the foil to create a coil and then put the Celluclay around that. And I actually, as you see, I just rolled a coil of Celluclay that was a little thicker than the aluminum foil and squished the foil inside of that and rolled it up and down my hand. I did that because I did not want to have to take little pieces of Celluclay and put it all over the surface. So that was a little fun hack that I discovered basically when I was beyond working with this house. I also didn't care that the columns were wonky, that the porch was kind of crooked. I mean, it's supposed to be a haunted house. So kind of my thinking was the more crooked and wonky and weird it looks, the better. So that part was also great since, like I said, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. This made it so I had to loosen up a little bit. I was going to say that whenever you hit the thrift store, keep your eyes open for this kind of stuff. Try to look beyond the surface of that country store lamp and think about what you could add to it. So for me, as soon as I saw that house, I was super excited because I knew I could attach foil to this thing and make it into a haunted house. I love going into the thrift store because now, knowing that I can do this process, because now I see things in a totally different way. And I've managed to cover, like I said, pumpkin heads, those plastic Halloween trick-or-treat bins that we all used to use growing up. Those are the things I found at the thrift store, and I was so excited to be able to rework and recreate those. So really keep your eyes peeled. In fact, I even took an old jewelry box that you can open and close, one of the ones that your grandma might have had, and transform that into a book of spells. So it's really fun now for me to go to the thrift store and get myself in a whole bunch of trouble by bringing home a whole bunch of junk that I definitely don't need and transforming it into something else that I totally don't need, like a haunted house lamp. Once the house was dry and the black paint was dry, then I just kind of attacked it with acrylic paint. I like acrylic paint and not tempera paint for my painting simply because it has a little bit of a shine to it. The colors are a lot more vibrant. This painting process did take me longer than I imagined, but I'm really excited with the results. I went with a very unappealing color scheme, but for me, these are Halloween-y kind of colors, and I was excited to find out that the actual cord and the light work. Yeah, believe it or not, I did not try it out until I actually finished the house. I couldn't find one of those really cool flickering lights, so I simply bought a little bitty light bulb and painted over it with a little red paint to give it that weird creepy glow. Thank you for letting me share my country store transformed into a haunted house with the magic of clay project with you guys today.